heels of the Harvey Weinstein scandal, Corey Feldman is on a mission, as he describes it, to clean up Hollywood. And it's taking on new meaning given those new allegations against Kevin Spacey that we talked about a little earlier.
So basically what I argue in my book is that the network behind Epstein, and the reason why there's so many powerful people in this group, is because it's born out of this union that occurred during World War II between organized crime and the nascent U.S. intelligence apparatus, which, of course, there was a lot of British involvement with that when in the creation of, the CIA and the OS.
The legal threats have already started landing. Books are already being pulled out of warehouses. And the one person who told Melania Trump's lawyers to go ahead and try it did it on camera with an expletive while holding her billion-dollar demand letter in his hand. That person was Hunter Biden. His answer was blunt. That's not going to happen. He stands out because almost everyone else moved in the other direction. The Daily Beast, HarperCollins UK, James Carville, they apologized, deleted, retracted, or backed off. Put those moves together, and it starts to look less like a series of random cleanups and more like a legal pressure campaign coming from Melania Trump's side of the White House. It has already changed the way people talk about Jeffrey Epstein faster than any court ruling could, so the question is not really whether her lawyers know how to apply pressure. Clearly they do. The more uncomfortable question is why this subject is being fought so aggressively.
Interview where she talks about her time that she spent with Ghislaine Maxwell, and she said she's like the most pure evil woman. She had no remorse for the victims when, stuff about Jeffrey Epstein would come up on like the news in prison, that she's just a very cold, evil person.
Is she going back on this housewife show?
No. And Andy's adamant that...
Look at how the pattern has played out. In July of last year, Michael Wolff appeared on a Daily Beast podcast and made several claims about Melania's connection to Epstein's social circle. The Daily Beast then published an article based on that interview. After that, Melania's lawyer, Alejandro Brito, sent a letter. The article came down. The podcast segment was edited. An editor's note appeared, apologizing for confusion. On its own, that would already be worth noticing. But then it happened again. HarperCollins UK, one of the biggest publishers in the world, withdrew 60,000 copies of Andrew Loney's book about Prince Andrew because it included a passage claiming Epstein facilitated the Trump's introduction. This was not a quiet correction buried in a later edition. It was 60,000 physical books pulled from distribution. Then James Carville, a Democratic strategist who has made a career out of not backing down, removed a YouTube video, edited his podcast, and issued a written apology. Melania Trump then posted that apology on her X account with a big red X over it, almost like she was displaying a trophy. That would be serious enough on its own. The next part makes the whole thing harder to explain away. Charlie Redmayne, the chief executive of HarperCollins UK, resigned not long after the book was pulled. The company said, "It is understood Mrs. Trump's complaint did not play a role in his departure." Listen to that wording. It is understood. That is the kind of careful corporate language people use when they are not confirming a connection, but the timing is awkward enough that they have to say something. Redmayne had led the company for 12 years. He left without a public explanation. A company does not usually lose its CEO and destroy 60,000 books over a minor wording dispute. At that point, it starts to look like pressure that went beyond a simple legal complaint. That is what Michael Wolff is getting at when he says Melania Trump is trying to create a climate of fear. So what does that climate look like in practice? It looks like billion-dollar demand letters showing up on desks with time frames so tight that most people do not have the time, money, or appetite to fight. It also looks a lot like the legal pressure Donald Trump has used against news organizations for years, only now it is coming from the First Lady's side while she is inside the White House. And it appears to be working. The Daily Beast backed down. HarperCollins backed down. Carville backed down. The one person who did not was Hunter Biden. When Brito's letter arrived demanding a retraction and apology for repeating the claim that Epstein introduced the Trumps, Biden did what almost nobody else seemed willing to do. He went back on the same YouTube show, held the letter up to the camera, and said exactly what he thought of it. Then he offered to give the president and first lady a platform for a deposition if they wanted to explain their relationship with Epstein under oath.
Maybe Epstein never kept this, and if that's the case, somebody as rich and powerful as him with his kind of connections, allegations that he had ties to other countries, what have you, I guess he's not the blackmailer that people thought?
Well, it's impossible for us to know, right? We're all speculating on what we're seeing that is really.
That kind of defiance carries a lot of risk in this environment. And there is another piece that often gets missed. Michael Wolff actually filed a lawsuit against Melania Trump. She threatened to sue him for $1 billion, but she did not file that case. Wolff filed first. He brought a preemptive action in New York State court last October, asking a judge to declare that his statements about Melania and Epstein were protected speech under the state's anti-SLAPP law, and he was very open about what he wanted from it. On his podcast, he said, "I can subpoena the First Lady, the President, and anyone else who might shed light on the relationship to open the curtain, the dark curtain." He wanted sworn testimony from both Trumps. That was the pressure point. Then, in May of this year, federal judge Mary Kay Weisskassil threw the case out. She called it an abusively presented spat and accused Wolff of tactical gamesmanship. The ruling was harsh. But it is important to be clear about what the judge did not decide. She did not rule that Wolff's claims were false. She did not rule that Melania Trump's version was true. She said Wolff could not ask for a preemptive win before Melania had even filed her own lawsuit. That is a procedural dismissal, not a decision on the underlying facts. Wolff has already said he will refile in state court or appeal. He also said he hopes to get a judge who is not a Trump judge. So the threat of depositions has not disappeared. Meanwhile, Melania's billion-dollar lawsuits still have not been filed. Not against Wolff, not against Hunter Biden. The person who went to court was the journalist, not the First Lady. That imbalance is hard to ignore. Now turn the situation around. While Melania's legal team has been pushing media outlets to retreat, the documents have been telling their own story, and that story does not fit neatly with the White House podium statement she gave in April. Standing behind the presidential seal and looking straight into the cameras, she said the lies linking her to Epstein needed to end. She said she had only casual correspondence with Ghislaine Maxwell. She said Epstein did not introduce her to Donald Trump. Then the paper trail started pushing back.
This just broke moments ago. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have released photos from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. We're getting dribs and drabs of this, and we had some pictures already, and here's some. There are some that show Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Steve Bannon, Bill Gates, and others. None of the released images depicts any misconduct. None is believed to depict underage girls. It was not immediately clear when or where they were taken.
Start with the email. A 2002 email from Melania to Ghislaine Maxwell, released as part of the Epstein files. Melania writes, "Nice story about J.E. and NY Mag. You look great on the picture. Give me a call when you are back in NY." She signs it, "Love, Melania." Maxwell replies by calling her Sweet Pea. That phrase matters. Love, Melania does not sound like a cold, formal exchange. It sounds warm, personal, and familiar. And "give me a call when you are back" does not read like a distant acquaintance being polite. Maxwell, who is serving a prison sentence for recruiting underage girls, was not exactly known for calling strangers Sweet Pea. The gap between that email and Melania's description of casual correspondence is hard to ignore. Then there is Epstein's own 2016 email. In it, the man at the center of the scandal suggests that he was present when Donald Trump and Melania met. His exact words are now part of the documentary record. Melania says Epstein did not introduce them. Epstein, in his own writing, appears to suggest something different. He is not alive to be questioned. He cannot explain what he meant. But the email exists, and it creates a problem that no legal demand letter can simply erase. A retraction from the Daily Beast does not make it vanish. A publisher pulling books does not make it disappear. It remains in the files. The visual record also makes the barely knew him defense harder to sell. A 1993 wedding photo of Donald Trump and Marla Maples shows Jeffrey Epstein clearly visible in the background at the Plaza Hotel. That is not some random run in years later at a crowded event. That is Epstein at Trump's wedding. Then there's 1999 Victoria's Secret footage, uncovered by CNN, showing Trump and Epstein laughing together before a fashion event. They do not look like awkward strangers making small talk. They look like two men who have known each other for years and are comfortable around each other. The footage was recorded before Epstein's crimes became public, but it still cuts against the administration's current effort to present distance and disgust.
This materials. But again, people would say, is it surprising that Epstein didn't maintain this kind of footage and documentary evidence against other people, unless of course no one else engaged in any of the abuse of these women or these girls? Because some people would say he was so rich, he was so powerful, why wouldn't he keep blackmail material, and wouldn't it have been in his possession, and wouldn't it have been accessed by federal prosecutors and authorities if they collected all this evidence from their home? I mean, to be clear, just to set it again, when they looked at all the material, their responsive requests were quite broad.
And if you want to know how Trump described that relationship before politics made every word dangerous, go back to his own 2002 quote in New York Magazine. "He's a lot of fun to be with," Trump said of Epstein. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. Those are not rumors or secondhand claims. Those are Trump's own words on the record about a man who would later be exposed as one of the most notorious predators in modern history. Reading that quote now, with everything that came out later, is chilling. Many of them are on the younger side, may have sounded casual at the time. Today, it reads very differently, so that is where the pressure is building. Melania Trump's legal operation has shown it can scare journalists, push publishers into pulling books, and get political commentators to apologize publicly. But it cannot make Epstein's emails disappear. It cannot undo the wedding photos. It cannot erase the footage of Donald Trump laughing with Epstein at a fashion show. And now, two very different groups are demanding answers in ways her legal strategy may not be able to control. Epstein's survivors have begun speaking directly against her, accusing her of shifting blame onto them. Inside Trump's own MAGA base, the loyalty is starting to crack. Michael Flynn posted in all caps that the Epstein affair is not going away. Jesse Waters told a Trump official on Fox News, "I'm not sure you totally get what people feel about that." The survivors want Bondi to testify under oath. The base wants the files. And Michael Wolff is still out there saying he wants to open the dark curtain. The legal pressure may have won around. But the documents are still there, and documents do not apologize. The backlash started almost immediately. When Melania Trump stepped away from the White House podium in April, she seemed to be presenting herself as someone standing up for Epstein's victims. Within hours, 13 survivors and family members released a statement that tore into the whole message. Asking more of them now is a deflection of responsibility, not justice, they wrote. Then they went further, accusing the First Lady of shifting the burden onto survivors under politicized conditions that protect those with power. That line cut the deepest. Melania had just asked Congress to make survivors testify publicly. Their response, in effect, was, "You go first," or better yet, stop shielding the institutions that exposed our personal information and then expected us to move on.
My polite reply to her email doesn't amount to anything more than a trivial note. I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party in 1998.
Danny Binsky still reacts physically when she talks about what the Department of Justice released. Her phone number, her workplace, detailed accounts of what she says she endured. This was not some tabloid leak floating around online. The federal government, under this administration, put that material into files that later became public. In a podcast interview, Binsky described walking into a room stacked with 3,437 volumes of Epstein documents. Just walls of paper. She pointed to one binder and said, "To see the person that scheduled me, who is still not behind bars. Her name is here." This is not some abstract complaint about process. It is a woman seeing the name of the person who scheduled her sitting in a federal archive while no one has been charged. And when survivors asked the Trump administration for a victim compensation fund, something even January 6th defendants received for legal fees, they got silence. Pam Bondi gave them something even worse than silence. At a hearing last year, survivors showed up in person. They asked her to turn around and acknowledge them. That was all. Just turn around and look at the people her office was supposed to protect. Bondi refused. They asked again. She still would not move. That small moment, the refusal to even turn around, became a symbol for how this administration has handled the Epstein matter. Bondi had gone on Fox News promising a truckload of files. What came out was mostly material that was already public. She was later fired, and sources inside the White House say her handling of the Epstein saga was a major factor. Now survivors want her to testify under oath. So far, Bondi has used her removal to avoid appearing before Congress. The pattern is hard to miss. Promise transparency, release very little, then vanish from the hot seat. Then the story moved in a direction people inside the West Wing do not seem to have expected. The pressure is also coming from the president's own voters. During the 2024 campaign, Donald Trump made very specific promises about Epstein. He said he would release the files. He teased a client list. His running mate, J.D. Vance, went on podcasts and said, "We need to release the Epstein list." The base believed them. For years, many of them had been convinced those files would expose a hidden network of powerful Democrats. Then Trump won, and those promises started to fade. What came out was mostly already public. Then the Department of Justice issued a memo saying no client list ever existed. Then, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche told Congress that the Epstein files should not be a part of anything going forward.
It's layers upon layers. It's those Russian nesting dolls, and you open it, and there's another one in there, and you open it, there's another one in there.
Corruptions at all time. Bro, the Epstein files.
I heard there's no files. I heard it's a hoax. And then all of a sudden, he's going to release the files. Well, I thought there was no files.
Man.
He wants an investigation now.
That quote did not give people closure. It felt like a betrayal, and the anger came from places the White House usually expects to have locked down. Michael Flynn, the retired general who pleaded guilty, was pardoned and became a hero to some of Trump's most loyal supporters, posted on social media in all capital letters. His message was not a show of loyalty to the president. It sounded more like a warning. "Epstein affair is not going away," Flynn wrote. That is not how an outside critic talks. That is how someone close to the movement tells the White House it has read the room badly. Flynn knows that base. He knows what they were promised, and he is telling the administration that the move-on strategy is not working. Even Fox News, which has often acted like a protective layer around the administration, started showing cracks. Todd Blanche went on the network to explain why the Justice Department was closing the book on Epstein. Jesse Waters, one of Fox's biggest primetime hosts, looked at him and said, "I'm not sure you totally get what people feel about that." On most issues, that might pass as a small, awkward moment. On Epstein, it meant something else. It showed that the base's frustration had become too loud for even friendly media to smooth over. Waters was not really speaking as a neutral journalist there. He was reflecting the reaction of millions of viewers who feel like they were sold one thing and handed another, and the polling points the same way. A Reuters Ipsos survey from January found that only 21% of Americans approve of Trump's handling of the Epstein files. 75% believe the government is hiding information. Among Republicans, 2/3 believe there is a cover-up. In plain terms, 2 out of every 3 Republicans believe their own administration is not telling them the full truth. Now pull the camera back. The political consequences are already being mapped out. The 2026 midterms are coming, and Democrats have made the Epstein files part of their pitch. Representative Robert Garcia, the top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, has been direct about it. If Democrats take the majority, he said, we're going to have a very long list of people, anyone that we believe had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. On day one, we'll have a subpoena from our committee. That includes Donald Trump. It also includes Melania Trump. And Melania herself gave them the opening when she called for congressional hearings from the White House. It is hard to demand that survivors testify and then object when the other party wants to ask the same of you. Then there is Howard Lutnick. The Commerce Secretary was Epstein's next-door neighbor on East 71st Street in Manhattan for years. He has said publicly that he found Epstein disgusting after an interaction in 2005. But documents released from the Epstein files show that Lutnick visited Epstein's private island in 2012, 4 years after Epstein pleaded guilty to procuring a person under 18 for unlawful activities. And the timing around his congressional testimony has raised even more questions. While Lutnick was negotiating that testimony before the House Oversight Committee, he wrote a check for $5 million to a Republican super PAC. In almost any investigation, that kind of timing would get noticed. Lutnick is still expected to testify eventually. And when he does, the questions are not likely to center on trade policy or commerce. They're going to be about what he saw from next door and what he was doing on that island.
First Lady Melania Trump is speaking right now at the White House. Let's listen in.
Good afternoon. The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today.
All of this, the survivors' anger, the base's sense of betrayal, the possibility of subpoenas, and the strange timing around a cabinet secretary, is happening while Michael Wolff waits for his next legal move. His federal lawsuit was dismissed on procedural grounds, but he has already said he plans to refile in state court or appeal, and he has been very clear about what he wants. I can subpoena the First Lady, the President, and anyone else who might shed light on the relationship, he said. To open the curtain, the dark curtain. He also said he hopes for a judge who is not a Trump judge. That does not sound like someone who is walking away. It sounds like someone who believes there is material that has never been tested in court. Wolff claims he has 100 hours of Epstein audio and photos from Epstein's safe. Those claims remain unproduced. But the possibility of discovery, of a judge ordering materials into evidence, is exactly the kind of thing Melania's legal team cannot shut down ahead of time with billion-dollar demand letters. And even if Wolff never produces a single recording, the circumstances around Epstein's confinement keep the story from fully closing. The cameras in front of his cell malfunctioned at the critical time. The guards assigned to check on him both fell asleep. The Department of Justice later released an edited tape with nearly 3 minutes removed. Polling has repeatedly shown that only 15% of Americans believe he took his own life. That kind of doubt is not limited to fringe corners of the internet. It cuts across party lines. As long as it remains, every new filing, every document release, and every survivor interview will bring people back to the same question: what has still not been explained? The disputed end of Epstein's life has become the part of the scandal that keeps pressure in the system.
Yes. There's too much circumstantial evidence that leads me to believe that it was an assassination. You know, I know a lot of people think that he committed. A lot of very smart people that I know think he committed. I'm like, there's too many convenient things. The cut wires, the security cameras rather, not working. They weren't cut, right? They just stopped. They didn't function. Security cameras didn't function. Yeah. The fact that he had shared a cell with this giant former cop.
So this is where things stand. Melania Trump's legal machine has shown it can scare journalists, force publishers to pull books, and make Democratic strategists apologize on camera. But it cannot stop survivors from speaking. It cannot make Michael Flynn's post disappear. It cannot undo Jesse Waters challenging a Trump official on live television. And it cannot stop a future Congress from issuing subpoenas that could put both Trumps under oath. The legal strategy won around, but the pressure is now coming from 3 directions at once. Survivors who feel exploited, a base that feels betrayed, and a political opposition that knows exactly how explosive this issue is. The dark curtain is still closed, but more people are reaching for it now. So what gives first? Does Melania actually file that billion-dollar lawsuit and risk discovery? Does Congress schedule hearings and put survivors on the record under oath? Or does Wolff find a judge willing to open the curtain for real? Leave a comment. Tell us what you think breaks first. We will be watching.